Jay had never imagined her 30s would smell like antiseptic and reheated soup. Every morning she woke before sunrise, her steps echoing softly down the narrow hallway that led to Thomász's room. The old house seemed to breathe with her, creaking floors, sighing walls, and that faint hum of the oxygen machine beside his bed. She adjusted his pillow, her fingers brushing against the warmth of his skin, and for a brief moment, it didn't feel like duty. It felt like something deeper, something she didn't dare name. He used to be a man of strength. You could see it even now, in the way his eyes still held command. Those same eyes followed her with quiet gratitude. But lately, Jay caught glimpses of something else behind them. Curiosity, maybe, or longing. It was subtle, but real. And though she told herself it was only her imagination, her chest tightened each time he looked at her like that. The lines between empathy and emotion began to blur, as soft and uncertain as the light slipping through the curtains. Every sound in that room carried meaning. The rustle of the bed sheets, the click of his medication bottle, the steady rhythm of his breathing. Jay often caught herself holding her breath, mirroring his pauses as if their bodies had learned to sync. She talked to him softly, about the weather, the neighbors, her day. It was the kind of conversation you'd have with someone you didn't want to lose. And when he smiled, that tired, grateful smile, it stirred something inside her, like a memory she couldn't place. Sometimes, Jay found herself watching the rain slide down the window pane while Thomáz dozed off. The world outside went on, cars passing, children laughing, life continuing without her. Inside, time felt heavier, slower, like honey dripping down glass. She wondered if he felt that too, trapped between what used to be and what will never come again. And in that shared stillness, she realized they were both living half-lives, clinging to fragments of who they used to be. Her husband, Michael, was grateful at first. "You're doing something beautiful," he'd said when she moved in with his parents. But gratitude soon turned into distance. He stopped asking how her day was, stopped noticing the exhaustion in her eyes. The silence between them grew wider, filled with the unspoken weight of sacrifice. Caring for his father had become her whole world, while her marriage quietly faded into the background, like a photograph left too long in the sun. One evening, as she helped Thomáz eat, his hand trembled and a spoonful of soup spilled across his blanket. She reached instinctively to clean it, her hand covering his. For just a heartbeat, the air shifted, thick, charged, alive. His eyes met hers, and in them, she saw a spark of the man he used to be. It scared her, that spark, because it reminded her how easily care could turn into connection, and connection into something far more dangerous. Nights were the hardest. The house grew quieter. Shadows stretched long across the hallway, and Jay often sat by Thomász's bedside long after he fell asleep. She'd listen to the rhythm of his breathing, steady but fragile, as if the air itself feared to disturb him. In those moments, she wasn't the daughter-in-law or the caregiver. She was simply a woman witnessing another human soul wrestle with fragility. Sometimes she wondered if compassion could be too much, if kindness could blur into intimacy without either of them meaning for it to. She'd tell herself it was only fatigue, that her emotions were a byproduct of sleepless nights and too much responsibility. But when she caught her reflection in the dark window, hair messy, eyes soft, mouth trembling at the edges, she saw a woman she barely recognized, a woman who felt too deeply, who carried other people's pain like it was her own. And maybe, in taking care of Thomáz, she was also trying to take care of the loneliness she refused to name. The next morning, she found him awake, watching her quietly from the bed. There was warmth in his gaze, gentle, understanding, almost knowing. Jay smiled back, though her chest felt heavy, full of unspoken thoughts. Something unexplainable had begun between them. Not love, not yet, but an invisible thread that pulled them closer with every shared silence, and neither of them could pretend not to feel it anymore. The days began to blend together, routine, wrapped in quiet repetition, until one afternoon, while tidying the small dresser beside Thomász's bed, Jay discovered a box tucked behind old scarves and folded letters yellowed with age. Curiosity pulled her in. The scent of old paper and faded cologne drifted up like a whisper from another life. Inside were photographs of a young man standing by the sea, his smile familiar yet freer, unburdened. She realized, almost painfully, that it was Thomáz, not the man she cared for, but the man he once was. When she showed him the box, his expression softened into something fragile. "That was before everything changed," he murmured, his voice trailing between nostalgia and regret. They spent the afternoon talking about the letters, about the woman who had written them, about choices made long ago. Jay listened, captivated. His stories weren't just memories, they were windows into another time, another heart, and with each word, she felt the distance between caregiver and patient quietly dissolve. That evening, the air felt lighter, filled with something bittersweet. Jay found herself wondering about the woman in those letters, what she was like, what she meant to him. And for the first time, she didn't see Thomáz as a duty, but as a man with a past, with passions that hadn't completely died. It made her chest ache in a way she couldn't explain. Caring for him was no longer just about helping him heal. It was about remembering who he had been. The next morning, Jay brought the letters back to Thomáz. His hands trembled slightly as he held them, fingertips brushing the ink as though touching memory itself. He spoke of his youth, of a time when life was measured in sunsets and promises instead of medications and routines. His words painted pictures: dusty streets after summer rain, dances under broken lights, a love that felt endless until it wasn't. Jay listened, heart open, as if each word carried a heartbeat from the past. There was something comforting about hearing him talk, his voice low and steady, his eyes shining with life that had seemed long gone. She began asking questions, not out of politeness but from genuine interest. What had he wanted from life before it unraveled? What dreams had he buried under the weight of years? Each answer drew them closer, like two souls circling an old fire for warmth. She felt herself drawn in, not by pity, but by connection. By evening, the letters became their ritual. After dinner, Jay would sit by his side and read them aloud. Sometimes, Thomáz would close his eyes, smiling faintly as if reliving every word. Other times, silence hung between them, heavy but comforting. It wasn't the silence of strangers. It was the silence of two people who didn't need words to feel seen. And in that stillness, something unspoken began to take root, fragile yet impossible to ignore. Over time, Jay noticed subtle changes in Thomáz. His voice grew steadier, his laughter less hesitant. When he looked at her now, it wasn't only gratitude she saw, it was presence, the kind that made her forget, for just a moment, the weight of duty pressing on her shoulders. She'd catch herself smiling back too easily, lingering too long when adjusting his blanket, her hand brushing his arm like it belonged there. It scared her, how natural it had become to care this way. Sometimes, after reading a letter, Thomáz would ask her what she dreamed about when she was younger. It was such a simple question, yet it left her speechless. She realized she couldn't remember the last time anyone had asked her that. He listened intently as she spoke, about art, about travel, about how life had quietly rearranged her priorities until she no longer recognized them. In his eyes, she saw understanding, and in that understanding, a dangerous kind of comfort. The nights grew longer, filled with whispers of the past and the quiet pull of something unspoken. Jay began to feel that their moments together existed in another world, one suspended between memory and longing, between what was right and what felt real. And though she tried to keep her heart steady, something inside her was shifting, drawing her toward the one place she shouldn't go. The shift between them wasn't sudden. It crept in softly, like dusk sneaking into daylight. Jay began noticing it in the smallest things, the way Thomász's eyes followed her when she entered the room, the way his voice softened when he said her name. It wasn't wrong. Not exactly, but it wasn't innocent anymore either. There was a current running beneath their words, pulling them closer with every shared smile, every quiet moment that lingered just a little too long. Her husband's absence only made it harder. Michael was always busy. Another meeting, another late night. The distance between them no longer felt like something temporary. It was a hollow she'd learned to live with.